Good morning, children. In the last session, we were talking about the different types of motion. The different types of motion are: one is rectilinear, or it can also be called as linear motion. Second, circular motion. Third, periodic motion. Rectilinear motion, the motion of objects along the straight line. An aeroplane flying at definite height is the rectilinear motion. Circular motion, the motion of wheel on any vehicle, the motion of wings of fan is circular motion. Then periodic motion. Periodic motion means the motion which repeat itself after regular interval of time. Example was also given that the earth revolves around the sun. It is periodic because after every year the earth come back to the same point. So that means the earth takes 1 year to complete one revolution. So the time period of earth is 1 year. It occurs periodically after regular interval. So we say it is the periodic motion. Similarly, the moon also revolves around the earth. It also occurs periodically. So that is periodic motion. And one more example also we can give, that we will study that device in this chapter at the last. But before that, similar to that device, we are going to say that the motion of child in a swing. A child sitting in a swing. Swing means jhula. And in that case, also, if we push the child from one side, the child moves to and fro. And similar to this, suppose if I roughly draw the diagram, this is the string from the fixed point. Here, this is the seat. Now we put anything, or a child is sitting. If we push this child from one side, now the child moves from this point to this side, then come back to the same point, then goes to other side, then come back to the same point. In this way, the child moves to and fro. Here this motion is also taking place at a regular interval of time. So it is also an example of periodic motion. So there are so many examples. In the last year also, you people have studied about various examples of periodic motion. And some examples discussed here also. But in these two examples, both are periodic. Both are repeating their motion after regular interval. But the difference is, here the child is moving in swing in to and fro motion. To and fro motion means like this. It starts from this point, moves to one side, and come back to the same point, moves to other side, again come back to same point. So this type of motion is known as to and fro motion. But in this case, the earth revolves around the sun. This is not happening like that. It means moves along this path, that is orbit. then it completes one revolution. Here to and fro motion is not taking place. So since both are taking place periodically at the regular interval of time, both are called periodic motion. But here this is taking place in to and fro motion. So in periodic motion also we are going to give another type of motion, that is oscillatory motion. It is oscillatory motion. So simply we can say oscillatory motion, the to and fro motion of an object is known as oscillatory motion. This is also one more type, oscillatory motion. So here the oscillatory motion also occurs periodically. So the oscillatory motion is also periodic motion. So finally we can say all the oscillatory motions are periodic, but all the periodic motions are not oscillatory. Here it is periodic as well as oscillatory, but in this case it is only the periodic. So this is also a kind of motion. Then at last we can say one more type, that is random motion. Random motion, it is the motion of object irregularly in different interval of time. Suppose when you are playing in a playground, you move in different direction. You are playing football. In that case, you are moving in different direction in different interval of time. So your motion is random motion. Otherwise, you can take another example. A fly. A fly is flying in the room. Its motion is also random because it moves irregularly in different direction. So these are the various kinds of motion. And all motions are having examples. Next we move on to, in the motion of any object, if anything is moving, from the motion of an object, what we are measuring. Suppose any object is at point A. From this point, the object moves to another point B. This is B. Now the object has to move from point A to B. Now it is the choice of that object along which path the object is going to move. If the object prefers this path, it may prefer this path. The object may prefer this path also. The object may prefer this path also. Object may prefer any kind of path. That is the choice of that object. Along every path the object moves from point A to B, it travels some length of path. If we measure the length from A to B along this path, path 1, 2, 3. Object selected 3 paths. Along the first path, the length is different. Along the second path, along the third path, in all the paths, the length travelled by the object between the same initial and final points is different. If we take the length of paths, the length of this first path is 200 meter. If we take along this, it is 500 meter. And here, the path along which the object moves along the straight line, that length of path definitely be least. That is 100 meter. Now the length of path travelled by the object between the same initial and final point is different. This actual length of path travelled by the object, actual length of path travelled by the object from one point to another point, irrespective of direction. Here, while the object is moving along this path, direction continuously changes. Here also the direction changes. But if the object is moving along the straight line, the direction same. Since along different paths the direction is changing, so we neglect the direction of motion. That's why we include the actual length of path traveled by an object between two points, irrespective of direction, is known as distance. Is known as distance. It means distance is the length. This distance is the first quantity which we are getting from the motion chapter. This distance you will discuss more and more in this year, in class 9th and in the higher classes. You will come to know many things about this distance. So distance is the actual length of path traveled by an object between two points, irrespective of direction. That is known as distance. Distance is the physical quantity. So it is having some SI unit. SI in the last year. Also you studied about SI, that is International System of Units. SI unit of distance. Since distance is the length, the SI unit of distance is also meter. It is meter. Should be written with a small letter. It should be small letter only. This is the SI unit of distance. But always the SI unit is not used. Sometimes we use kilometer. If the distance is longer, we use kilometer. If the distance is smaller, we use centimeter or small millimeter. Any unit can be measured, but the SI unit is meter. That is the distance. And further, we will discuss the quantities related to distance in the next session.